Hello, welcome to this video, lesson 14 of Lily de Silva, and in this video clip we'll be looking at the future. And as always, I will be looking at the Sanskrit at the same time as the Pali, because as so often happens, the Sanskrit will assist you in understanding what may appear to be the vagaries of the Pali. So look now at Lily de Silva, page 55. I'll just read through the first half of the page and then we'll analyze what it's about. Future tense. The future tense is formed by adding sa, double S, a to the root or the verbal base, with or in some cases without the connecting vowel e. The terminations are the same as those in the present tense, that means the present indicative. So you have, let me call up my iPad for you. There we are. So from the root, patch, you'll see that we have patch. I'll divide the word up here. Pachisati. And as we know, the present is bachati. So here, pachisati. And you cook, singular. Pachisasi, you will cook. And I will cook is pachisami. So you'll recognize here these same endings that we've had so in time, ati, asi, ami, and the same in the future. They will cook. Pachisanti, you will cook. Pachisata, we will cook. Pachisama. Now I will call up MacDonnell, Sanskrit, paragraph 151, or section 151, on the simple future. That's simple as opposed to periphrastic, and don't bother with the periphrastic unless you're specifically a Sanskrit student, Sanskrit scholar, because the periphrastic future, I think I'm right in saying it doesn't feature in Pali. If it does, it's very rare. It's not part of normal Pali. Anyway, we just have the simple future. So if you look at what MacDonnell says, the basic rule is that you add sya to make the future stem. So root, either modified or unmodified. I'll explain in a moment what I mean by that. Then sya, or with connecting vowel I, making ishya, and then it conjugates exactly like any ordinary present tense in Pali as in Sanskrit. Now let us looking at Sanskrit now. I'm going to go back to my iPad. Here we go. Just on page 2 of the iPad. When do we get the connecting vowel? Okay, we get the connecting vowel mostly if the root ends in Sanskrit. Yeah, same in Pali. More so in Pali even. If the root ends in a consonant, then you usually have the connecting vowel. If the root ends in a vowel, then just add sya directly. So for example, look at the root da. He will give, just makes da. I'll divide the word up for you here. Dasyati. Dasyati. And then that will conjugate the same as the others. Dasyati, dasyasi, dasyami, and so on. Dasyanti, dasyata. dasyama. And in Pali, it will follow the normal Pali inflections. If you look at page 56 near the top, Lily de Silva, attention may be paid to the following forms. The third form down given from dadati, he, she, it gives, has two alternatives, dadissati and dassati. Now this dassati, one of the two alternative forms, is the one that is directly cognate with the Sanskrit dasyati. Dasyati, Pali dassati, and as normally happens, almost always happens in Pali, a long vowel before a doubled consonant or a consonant cluster will be shortened. That's why the Sanskrit dasyati becomes in Pali dassati. When is the connecting vowel I added? Well, mostly if the root ends in a consonant. So let's take pach. In Sanskrit, pachishyati. And because that S is preceded by a vowel other than A or A in the same word, it becomes subdotted ish, so pachishyati. And that in Pali, by standard phonetic mutation, becomes pachisati, which is the form that you will see given on page 55 in Lily de Silva. Often, mostly if the root ends in a vowel, then the sya, talking about Sanskrit now, the sya will be added directly to that root, as in da. Sorry, the script's long. I forgot to make that long. Da dasyati. There is sometimes it doesn't happen. For example, the well-known root bhu, to be, that makes the present tense bhavati and Sanskrit makes the future bhavishyati. So, and as is to be expected in Pali, that becomes bhavisati. Let's look now at the future of the 10th class. That's the aya class. For example, chor in Sanskrit, chorayati, to steal, Pali, choreti. All that happens in the Pali is this aya has become softened to e, chorayati, choreti. Now, in Pali, he will steal. It's made as if the base is chore. Sorry. So he will steal. Choressati, not choressati, but choressati. Note here, you know the rule that e and o are long if they end a word, or if they are followed by a consonant, single consonant followed by another vowel. Basically, it's always long unless it has to be shortened because it's followed by a doubled consonant or a consonant cluster. Look here, we have the consonant cluster, double S, so it's pronounced short, choressati, choressati. In Sanskrit, it behaves in a very regular manner. chorayati, chorayishyati. So look, Sanskrit chorayishyati, Pali chorisati, and the rest then exactly follows: chorayishyati, chorayisyati, chorayishyami, and so on. And in Pali, chorisati, chorisasi, chorisami, and so on. Now, Sanskrit is fairly regular in how it forms its future. There are a few irregularities. Which you'll see at the bottom of the first page of section 151. You needn't bother too much with those unless you're a Sanskrit scholar. Here we see where I got my cursor, the aya retain the present stem, dropping only the final asa, choraya. That's chorayishyati, chorayishyati, as I've just written for you, and that's a Pali chorisati. Let's look now at the bottom of page, or the last bit on page 55, Lily de Silva, the base kina, to buy. In Sanskrit, kri, and kri is a class 5 verb. Sorry, Silami, slip of the tongue. It's a class 9 verb. It inserts this na. So kri, looking now at the present stem, kri nami. Kriyanami, Krinasi, Krinati. And that's how in Pali, and we had this in an earlier lesson in Lila Silva, we get Kinami, Kinati, and so on. Now, the general rule in Sanskrit is that you form your future tense from the root, not from the present stem. The root is kri in Sanskrit. Well, the root is kri for Sanskrit and Pali. Lily de Silva tells us, near the bottom of page 55, that from the base kina, you make kinisati. So Sanskrit kriyanami, krinati, Pali kinati, on that base, kinisati. In Sanskrit, you don't do that. You, with very, very few exceptions, you form the future from the root, directly from the root, modified or otherwise. So for kri, you gunate the e, that means to make it e. So he will buy in Sanskrit is greshyati. This kinisati would not be permitted in Sanskrit, so it's the normal, it's normal in Pali. And we've seen before there are a number of cases in Pali where a particular form of the verb is based off the present stem, like the twa, for example, the absolutive form from the root drish, for example, makes in the present irregularly, it has a different root, makes pashyati, in Pali passati. in Sanskrit, you make the absolutive in twa, in drishtva, and in Pali it normally becomes disva. But Pali also allows the absolutive from the present stem. So you can have in Pali, having seen pasitva, which is not permitted in Sanskrit. So kinissati in the future, not permitted in Sanskrit, but that's how it's done in Pali. The way it's done in Sanskrit is regular. Now, for example, look at the root, Sanskrit root, sta, to stand. I will stand is regular, stasyami. Stasyami. Look now near the top of page 56, the fourth example given. We know titrati from the Sanskrit tishtati. The Pali makes its future passati, not from the present stem, but directly from the root. So Sanskrit stasyati, Pali passati, with retroflexion of the T, which is pretty much regular. Stasyati, passati. Look also, looking at the top of page 56 now, we have our root gum. We know it's a little bit irregular in the present stem because the gum becomes gach, gachati. Same in Sanskrit and Pali with gachati. In Sanskrit, you can do one of two things. You can have gansyati with the future sya added directly to the root, which then becomes a sub-dotted M before an S, not gamsyati, but gansyati. You can also in Sanskrit have it with the connecting vowel I. Both forms are allowed in Sanskrit. Gamsyati or gamishyati. Note in Sanskrit and also in Pali, you do not use the present stem to make the future. So we've seen kinissati, where the present stem is used to make the future in Pali, not in Sanskrit, whereas for the root gum, Pali allows just the one form, gamissati, which exactly reflects the Sanskrit gamishyati. And then we have our root kri, which is a little bit irregular. It makes karoti in both Sanskrit and Pali. In Sanskrit, it makes karishyati, and in Pali, as we would expect, karissati, he will do. Note in the third item, third example item at the top of page 56, Silva, from the root da, present dadati, reduplicated. We have the form dasati, which you might say is the more classical form and exactly reflects the Sanskrit dasyati. But also we can have a future taken from the present stem, dadati, dadissati. So there is a future in Pali taken from the present stem, not from the root. Allowable in Pali, not allowable in Sanskrit. where dasyati is the only permissible form. So there are a few rules. There's a slightly more complexity occasionally in how you add the double S to the root. I'll just give you one example here from our root shru. You will very frequently, if it's possible, gunate the root, so shru will there become shro shyati, he will hear. And sure enough, in Pali, it turns up as susati. Shroshati Sanskrit, susati in Pali. It's probably completely unnecessary to learn all these rules by heart now. The future is a pretty uncomplicated kind of tense, and you'll almost always recognize it, because you'll recognize the root, and then you recognize in Pali the double S, which is characteristic of the future before the verb ending. And even though you haven't learnt how the double S is joined to the root with what modification, you will almost always recognize root double S verb ending. It's a future from that root. But you'll learn it as you go along, and it is important to learn the gunas here. Those of you who haven't yet done it, I've done a video on it, which I shall refer you to now. Yeah, it's on my grammar videos. It's under heading 17 because that's where MacDonnell puts it. It's fairly simple to master. Once you do master, it'll make life so much simpler for you. For example, you won't be having to do things like wondering, where society comes from. You'll see that it's from the root shru with guna of the o to o, shroshati, society. Right, so this is it now for the grammar, and in the next video I will be dealing with the Pali to English translation exercises.